Hello everybody and welcome to another product review video. And today we are going to be talking about Vallejo Pigments. These have been around for a long time. They're certainly nothing new, though there are many sets of them available. There are 4 different sets of 4. And I wanted to talk about them and do them in a product review video because I wanted to kind of highlight them because they're something that I find very useful and I use on almost every product or every project. So I've got a little mini here. We're going to see him in action here in a minute. Let's slide him to the side. So this is the mud and sand set, and as you can see, it comes with a very nice yellow kind of mud, this wonderful red oxide. This is one of my favorite sets. Comes with this sort of deep brown natural umber and a light slate gray. This is a fantastic set. It's got a nice range all across the earthy tones. Now, what I like about using these is, in general, you require very, 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 very little of them to achieve any desired effect, right? So, in general, you can get away with, basically, once you buy these, you own these forever, okay? As long as you're responsible with them, you don't tip them over and spill it everywhere, this is a product you will purchase once in your life. And given that you can get the set of 4 for varying prices, but it's usually somewhere in the $20 to $30 range, depending on where you're buying it from, where you are in the world, and how that all converts, whatever, you get the idea. Each of these things are 35 milliliter, containers, right? And like if we open it up here, you'll see what I mean. It's just soft pigment. Now, remember, your paint, your actual bottle of paint is a combination of pigment, medium, and water, right? Okay. Now, this is just pigment. So the first thing to understand about this stuff is if you use it straight on, it is really intense. All these colors are going to be really intense if you just apply the pigment directly on. Okay. The second thing to keep in mind is that they don't dry out. They don't ever die because they're just dry pigment. So like if you do leave the top off for hours, who cares? The worst thing that could happen is actually water getting into them, not out. So you do want to kind of keep them in a drier area. But anyway, okay. So, as I said, you're generally in the $20 to $30 range, depending on the site you get it from or where, how much savings you have. You get 4 of them for a pack, and once you buy it once, they will last your entire existence in this hobby. I don't know how you could physically use one of these unless you were constantly doing massive tank models and really, really using these to make like a lot of spray on mud. So there are probably exceptions, but for most of our purposes, they'll be good for the rest of your life. Okay, so I'm going to actually scoot these to the side for a moment. Because what I actually do is just keep them, as point of fact that you can just keep around, I just keep them on my palette. You can see, in this extra, I keep an extra palette in a drawer in my desk that literally just has the loose pigment scattered around. You can see it here. There's a black, there's a gray, there's that umber, or the whatever this thing is. Light yellow ochre, the oxide, another light brown, and then the darker brown. So there you go. Now, how do we use these? Pigments can go on in a lot of different ways. Here I've got a Stormcast I did previously, and you see he's got some rock here. Now I've worked in some color to the stone, but the stone is still a little flat. So what we're going to do is I just grab an old crappy brush, and that's a key. Use an old crappy brush. Don't use a nice brush for this. And what we're going to do is we're just going to literally work it up in there. And you can see how it's dark when it goes on. But I can just push it around, right? So you have a lot of control over this pigment and how it goes on. Now, if you're just putting it on dry like I am here, it's not going to really stick to the model very well, right? So how do we get, you can work in a lot of it slowly. And even then, it's not really going to stick. Like if I wipe my finger across, you can see I get a little bit of it off there. Okay? So it's a very forgiving thing. Because if you screw up, if it ends up in the wrong place, it's not like paint, right? it can just be taken off. Now, you can fix it with, there's all sorts of like pigment fixers and stuff like that. That's probably all more complicated than you need to. If you've got some Lamia medium or something like that, Lamia medium, alcohol, matte medium, anything like this will work. Does not matter. So using these is very simple. You want to bring some life into your rock, some depth. We can get a little bit of matte medium in our brush. Not a lot. And then what we're going to do is we're going to just work that down in there. And now you can see that we've got something to stick to. Okay? And notice I can just keep wiping it back if I'm not happy with how it's working. So I can add some color, some tone. And if that's too dark, here's the wonderful part. Because it's just pigment, okay, I don't like that. I put on too much. All right, well, let's go back into the matte medium. Let's grab some of that gray. And let's just work that in there. You notice I'm just kind of pushing it in and down. So these can work really well over top of each other. I like the red one very much, although you got to be very careful with it, to work in just some red tones into your rock, because red looks really good, like as to show you there's some like iron oxide or something in your rock. You can see just like the slightest touch of it there, how that looks. I think that looks, I love a little bit of red tone in rocks. I see a lot more people working like red tones into their rocks, and it has a very natural thing, especially their stone. Has a great look to it. You can use a little bit of the darker earth. Every so often I just go into my matte medium. I want my brush just a little wetted with the matte medium. And then at the end, when I fix it all, it'll all just stay into place. So you can see how quick and easy this is. This isn't really complicated. And if you can always just wipe off your brush. And if you want to get rid of some, you get it away. So you can see how quick and easy we can add some tones, some textures to our stone. And again, because this set comes with this nice stone gray, this nice slate gray, if you ever go too far, you can always just go right back over it with the gray, very slowly build it back up. So what you get is a nice faded effect. So this isn't really a tutorial on using the pigment, more just showing them in action. You can see how easy they go on, they apply. As I said, if you want to fix them, you can either mix them directly with something like this, have it, or after it's all dry, I could put a little matte medium over it, little fixer of any kind over it, and it'll stay there. I find the pigment to be very, very useful for doing things like working colors into your rocks. It just makes them look so much more organic. So if you're doing like basing schemes with rocks or dioramas or anything like that, I think they're great. As I said, what's nice about them is the amount you get, how easy they are to use. You just need a crappy brush. If you have bigger spaces, just use an old crappy dry brush, and you can then just work them in and then spray the whole area with some matte varnish or satin varnish or medium or anything. Basically, you just need to get a medium in the pigment to make it stick, because that's actually how pigment fixes. That's how your paint sticks to your miniature. It's pigment being fixed by some kind of medium. So anything that contains a medium-like substance, a varnish or an actual medium, will work. So all in all, I really like Vallejo Pigments. And there's other companies that make these as well, but I really like the color ranges that the Vallejo 4-packs come in. I think they all make logical sense. I think each one of them is individually useful for doing different things. These are really, really, really indispensable if you do big vehicles or something like that. So for 40K players, to me, these are even more important, because when you're doing your big, I don't know, Riptides or Night Titans or stuff like that, you can use these to do rust and dirt on their feet and up in gears and stuff like that. And it's going to look so much more natural. When you've got miniatures walking in muddy areas, I use the pigment to put dirt onto their feet, on their boots. I use it to color stone. I use it to work into various like grasses or stuff like that, to get a little bit of dirt back on things if it's been blowing around. In dusty desert scenes, you can use the lighter color one to kind of redust your bone and actually give it a physical weight to the dust. So there's just a lot of options of how to use these pigments, and I haven't even really covered all of them. All in all, I'm going to give the Vallejo Pigments a solid B+. They're a great pickup, very much worth the money. As I said, they're going to move up to like an A for you if you're in the world where you're doing a lot of vehicles, tanks, walkers, stuff like that, because then these are going to be a great way to do a lot of weathering. So there you go. That's my product review for Vallejo Pigments. I hope you enjoy. I hope maybe you give these a try if you think they'd be useful to you. Give this video a like if you like it. Subscribe for more product reviews and tutorials in the future. Feel free to share this with anybody. That's always very appreciated. And we'll see you next time.